Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Mad Ones. My name is Jessica. You know me very well. And my co host Cam is currently on vacation. He is hunting endangered albino giraffes in the Florida Everglades by helicopter, and he will return next week. But I wanted to keep the show going, even though Cam had animals to kill. And so we decided as a team that I was just going to try and do this by myself. So I don't know where all the buttons are, and you guys kind of have to just like roll with me about that. Um, Before we get into it, before I introduce the guest that I actually do have for you guys tonight, I want you to know that this show is 100% sponsored by the patrons. So if you guys can hit like, subscribe, share the show with your friends, if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. That kind of helps us bump up in the algorithm and can help us get to that sweet, sweet monetization. Um, Also, you could join our Patreon. We do a lot of fun stuff on Patreon. We actually have parties. We play Quiplash. We do chats, all kinds of fun stuff. So if you want to come be a patron, help us keep the lights on, that would be really awesome. And you do kind of get a lot of perks out of being a patron. So please come and join us for that. That is at patreon.com/the Mad Ones. You can also grab a t-shirt, a mug. We've got merchandise with our beautiful faces on them, or just the kick-ass logos that Cam has created. So if you want to, rep our stuff, don't be like me when somebody in public asks you who the Mad Ones are and you lie and say it's a band because I think it's funny. Actually, maybe direct them toward the show because that would help us out. Yeah, that's all like I'm obviously reading. You guys know what's going on here. That's all the stuff that I was told that I really needed to say. So I'm going to introduce the guest that I have for you guys tonight. Everyone on the Twitter sphere knows and loves her. She is the queen of the salt shaker, the knower of the good tequila, a domestic goddess whose trick-or-treat bags put all the other mombies in the neighborhood to shame, and the next evolution of the Pinterest mom Pokemon, my ride or die bitch, tweets by Britt.
Hi,
Hello, Britt.
thanks for having me on. I like that intro.
Thank you. Thank you. We try to welcome our guests in the most resplendent of manners and give them, the intros that they really, really deserve. So I'm
I-
glad that you're here.
Thanks. I'm
So
glad to be here.
what's going on? How are you? Been
I'm
a while
good.
since you checked in with the podcast sphere. What's going on?
I know. I mean, I guess by now the secret's out. The Fab show is now defunct. The Freckles and Britt show is now defunct. Freckles and I are still amazing friends. I love her forever. She's getting married in like a month, which we were all invited to in this room. So I'm looking forward to all of seeing her as a bride. But as
Yeah.
far as the show goes, everyone just got really busy.
Yeah.
I moved to Georgia, and I mean, we see each other a lot more, so that's good.
So, although you are a California transplant to Georgia, you're one of the ones I actually don't mind being here.
Thank you.
And it's kind of an unpopular opinion among my fellow Georgians, but I do kind of like some of the influx of new people because they're bringing really good restaurants with them. And
Yeah,
so I think there's like a trade off here that we might actually get some benefits out of having an infusion of new blood. Like,
yeah,
there's no shortage of like chicken and biscuits places around here. Maybe we could have a good taco place.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because my husband and I were we've been talking about that for months. Like, we need to open a place up out here. Um, I have such a huge food background. Both my parents, my mom owned a catering company. My parents had a deli when I was a kid. I am no stranger to an antipasto platter, or as some of you bitches call it, charcuterie. But I'm
Excuse
Italian.
me, it is a shark coochie board.
A shark coochie board.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
You're in
uh,
Georgia now. You have to speak our language.
and I have single-handedly purchased every Anaheim chili I've found in Georgia since I've been here, because I have to keep that like LA Mexican food culture alive and well in my home. So
Right.
that's that's what's going on. I mean, I have a new show that's coming up, but it's it's not ready yet. So
Okay, okay. Well, we don't have to let any cats out of the bag too early. I don't know who puts cats in bags in the first place, but if you let them out, it's apparently kind of a big deal.
yeah,
So we will avoid that topic. Um, are you ready for your first big interview question of the night, Britt?
I am. I never
Yeah.
get hard hitting questions, and especially from my best friend, I'm afraid what's going to happen. So,
So, can you define for me what a woman is?
can I define for you what a woman? I mean, I'm a woman. You're a woman.
Right?
I was born with all the lady parts. Uh,
Right?
whether they work or not doesn't seem to matter because,
Right.
you know, but I have the right chromosomes. I have the correct chromosomes.
Wow, this
Um,
is such a better answer already than was given by the Supreme Court prospective nominee.
yeah. Um, and barring some, act of God or, whatever, I'm able to carry a child to term. Um,
Right.
and I at least have the parts. I don't know if I could still do it. I'm getting up there. So,
So
but
basically what you're saying is you are a biologist.
I am, well, in 2022, I'm actually a heretic, but
Yeah. I found it really interesting that she kind of popped off with this answer that was not an answer at all. It was really just kind of a sidestep to the question, which is, well, I'm not a biologist. And I mean, how could you give an answer that was so easy to kind of come back at? Like, it basically, and I kind of made this point earlier. I tweeted about it. I said that these questionings of these Supreme Court nominees, they're not actually like there for the people who are voting on the nominee. Like, that's already locked in. What it's actually doing is like a performance piece for the people who are watching this shit on television.
yeah,
And it's so each senator can kind of like do their little dance in front of everybody.
yeah. I mean, I tweeted the other day. I don't even know why we do this. It's basically whoever's in charge at the time that's going to be able to, approve a Supreme Court nominee or deny a Supreme Court nominee. They're going to do it. They've done it in their mind before this person even goes in for questioning. And
Yep.
really, I mean, we have, depending on what day of the week and who's in charge, it's like somebody wants to pack the Supreme Court. Uh, and it always changes who wants to do it, who's doing it. I mean, it doesn't change it. It's always the left that wants to do it. But,
Right. Let's
but
be real.
yeah, but Republicans are like, hey, let's get our guy in there too. Like, and really at the end of the day, like, it's kind of bothersome to me that we just have like a group of 6 or 7 or 8 or however many it's going to be, people that just decide what's right and wrong for the whole country, because these people are wildly inaccurate about it a lot of
Mhm.
times. What should actually happen in a fair and just world is that we abolish the Supreme Court.
Mhm.
And
Well, that's interesting. I was gonna ask you what you thought the perfect number of judges would actually be.
none of them.
None of them. Okay, interesting. So when you and I last talked about sort of our like opinions on where government stood, you were coming from the minimalist or minarchist position, and I was coming from sort of like the anarchist position. And I know that I have shifted my position since the maybe year and a half since we actually had that discussion, which is available on my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel, if you guys want to go back and watch it. Um, have Would you say that your positions have shifted in the last year and a half? And what would you say is like a major cause of that shifting?
um I honestly think that my positions have hardened in the last year.
Hmm.
I don't I still don't believe in full anarchy because I don't trust the people around me to stay anarchists.
Mhm.
Um, I don't. I think that they're always. Like I said, I've always said like I'm a I'm a J-shaped minarchist. Like I'm fine when we go in to anarchy, but I understand that we won't stay there. We never will because people will always people.
Right.
And more than ever, I see that. um, especially after the last 2 years, especially after we've seen everything with world timeout and people still continuing to push like vaccine mandates and mask mandates and stuff, um, and people cheering for it. So many
Yeah.
people want to be controlled. So many people uh, just really need someone to tell them what is right and wrong.
Mhm.
Um, that I think it's always going to happen. And the reason it's always going to happen, because the only way that you could have true anarchy, in my view, is if all of the people around us and everyone on the planet fully recognized that uh, we were made by a creator, we were made to worship, we have we have a savior that came and saved us, and that our debt and our gratitude, everything that we have and that we owe, belongs to this creator, and that
Mhm.
that is who we should be submissive to. But people don't want to submit to the correct God, so we're never going to be able to have true freedom. We just aren't, because we're slaves to ourselves. We
Mm.
that's just how it is. And that sounds
Can
so
you can you expand on that idea? I almost said I don't want to put you on the spot, but you're the subject of the interview, so I'm going to put you on the spot. What do you mean by we worship ourselves?
well, I see it all the time. I I believe, because this is what the Bible talks about. Not
Sure,
to get
yeah.
super religious, but
No, man,
I guess I'm
this
just
show
going
we
to, because that's the only way that the one thing I can see over the last 2 years is that my resolve in Christ and in the Bible has hardened more and more. It's
it's
solidified more
amazing.
and more. So I look at it like this. We were created to worship. When people say, like, why were we created? Oh, God wanted a companion. God wanted this. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. What makes you think that you're great enough, like that God would want to talk to you, like that you could even be on his level? Okay. He
Right.
created you in his image. He loves you and me. I'm in the you of all of this. But we were created to worship. And there's an innate uh, purpose inside of us. We have this longing to worship something. And if it's not going to be God, we're going to find a God to worship. We're going to find a band. We're going to find a government. We're going to find ourselves. Um,
Yeah.
and we will continue to do this over and over and over, because when you talk about like your baser self, or you talk about human nature, then we say, like, oh, we have these desires, we have these drives, we have these, drive to eat, drive to do this. We have a drive to worship,
Mhm.
and we will find something to worship. And a lot of people, a lot of people choose self, but more than anything, people choose whoever seems to be an authoritative figure that
Right.
says enough of the things that soothe them so that they can sleep at night, that
Right.
soothe the reality, the horrible reality that they're just alone spinning on this rock in space.
Because
And
I
there's
think all humans, sorry to interrupt, but I think all humans innately do recognize that something is deeply wrong with the world. Like it's not ordered the way that it ought to be. And across religions, atheists, uh, religious people all seem to have that as an internal sense.
yeah. And the you know the one thing that I will say has really changed for me over the last year is that I've stopped so much, like, I still will dig on the left, I'll still dig on the right, I dig on
Mhm.
libertarian, but at the end of the day, my criticism, um, my judgment, where my judgment lies, I think has become uh, more correctly placed. I
Okay.
find my judgment in the church, like where I
Okay.
see Christians, and I'm not talking about the churches like the Baptists, or the Orthodox or the Catholics. I mean the church, the body as a whole, the body of Christ as a whole. What are we doing?
Right.
Are we
Okay.
following? Because it really doesn't matter what any outside source says or does. Are we following the instructions that we were given?
Mhm.
And I see it so much. You're Orthodox, I'm Protestant. Um, we have friends that are Catholic, and I've seen these, like I talked about the other day, the Enneagram numbers, which people
Yeah,
are
I
starting
looked
to
that
use.
up, and looking it up didn't help explain it. So, can
No.
you kinda give me a just real quick type of overview of what
So
the hell that
Enneagram,
means?
yeah, Enneagram is basically like a Myers-Briggs personality test that is
Okay.
assigned a number,
Is that like
and
the NINJT thing?
yeah, it's like
Okay.
that. It's like any one of those. You know, I like I always say like IDAF, like when they ask what mine is. But like, uh, so these numbers, they're starting to be used in churches, and it's like I would. I was thinking when I first saw it, this is like a Joel Osteen thing, maybe like not him specific, but those kind of churches. But
That
it's
vibe.
yeah, but it's like I've seen it from like groups. Like I looked it up specifically, like groups of Catholic people, groups of Protestant people, groups of Orthodox people, like not specifically even in the church, but in these like group meetings because they're saying like, oh, it helps you identify how, your worship style helps you identify. But at the end of the day, it's a distraction. And at the end of the
Hmm.
day, it's really you're learning to worship
So,
yourself again.
is
And
it like that, Foursquare political compass where it kind of,
yes.
like, places you somewhere within that realm?
Yeah,
Okay, I kinda
and
get that.
the thing about it that is so kinda tricky, I would say, it's a lot to me, and this is gonna sound weird to people that know what this um, is it's a lot like yoga. So,
Yeah.
you're just
Donna
doing the
Donna just
poses.
said that new age is
Okay.
creeping in.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of people that actually call this not new age, but new thought. So it's like Christianity, well, they're
Okay.
saying it as a criticism, like, this is new age thinking, it's just it's just like a new, like how a different type of Christianity. It's basically like this, there's no difference between these like spiritual Christians and progressive Christians, and they all kind of, it's like you're literally one crystal away from like worshiping a false god. I mean, you already are, but like
Yeah.
it's all basically the same. But people that know what these numbers are about, they basically it's a lot. It's exactly like yoga, in my opinion, in the respect
Mhm.
that you could either be doing yoga to just kind of get a health benefit, or you could start to get into the woo part of it, the
Right.
spiritual part of it. And that's the thing is these Enneagram numbers came from like an occultist, um, like the psychologist that put this together. It came from basically an occultist background where he does like the free flow. He said he basically um, like closed his eyes, opened his mind, and kinda let it all flow out. It's like an occultist kind of
Wow,
practice.
that's
I had
definitely
to
not a way to let a demon speak through you, but
Yeah,
continue the story.
so I had to really dig to find out because I wanted to like find out like, "Hey, what is this? What is it that people that these Christians are actually doing?" You know? It's like it doesn't even matter to me at the end of the day, to be honest. Like I said, like with anything, like if you're just doing it to use the personality test part of it, fine. But it really is so easy to slip into like, let's start worshiping this. Let's start making this like a, let's spend our whole Bible study talking about this one thing. And
Right.
me and you have had this conversation several times.
Mhm.
I get so distracted in my real life. I get off base a lot of times with a lot of things. I don't even think this was a conversation we were supposed to have tonight. But when
There
I
wasn't, like, really a plan.
but I could imagine going to a Bible study and having this conversation not being the first 5, 10 minutes. And
Right.
it could easily, especially with a group of women, sorry, but especially with a group of women, this could take up several sessions where
Right.
you're supposed to be leaning into the Lord, not leaning into yourself.
Mhm.
And it goes along with a lot of other things that I'm seeing that um, that have really bothered me over the past year. Affirming churches. We talk about this, and this is going to make so many people angry right now, but
Well,
Yeah.
because I didn't know when I first heard it, just for the clarity of the audience, what is an affirming church?
So an affirming church can be, well, let's just get the basic, the down to the basic level of it. An affirming church is 99.9% of the time a church that affirms homosexuality as a lifestyle choice.
Okay.
Or not like you were born this way, God made you this way, we affirm you. And they either just flat out say it's not a sin, or they say things like we just don't talk about it, or everybody has a struggle, like, but they affirm you. And the problem that I have with this one is that it's literally like the this is like, man, I never want to give the devil props, but if I had to, it's like, man, that's a good one, dude. That's a good one. You literally got people to go to church every week and go to hell. Like, you're literally getting these people to go to hell because they think that they're getting right with God. Like, I'm like,
Right.
that is like, that's it. But at the end of the day, isn't that the number one lie that Satan has, is to like make it so that he's not actually real. That's the
Yeah,
biggest. But
that's kind of the point that C.S. Lewis was making in the Screw Tape Letters, where he is an older demon is advising a younger demon on how to corrupt someone. He says you can't go in with something big and splashy and try to get him to murder someone in an alleyway.
yeah,
The human brain will kind of go, hey, that's not right. You have to kind of worm your way in there, making them think that they're doing good when they're actually walking themselves backwards.
yeah,
And I was like, that was a big moment for me because I was like, I can see in my own life where I allow that kind of thing to happen, where our intentions are good. And that's what's meant by that line, the way to hell is paved with good intentions.
yeah,
That's super crystallized for me when I read Screw Tape Letters because I was like, oh, the devil will use our faith. Like, what
yeah.
better tool?
That is exactly like, and I'm not. The thing is I'm not saying anything about LGBT. I'm not saying anything about homosexuality. But to be clear, because I'm not some, sit on the fence, whatever, and people are gonna think whatever. I absolutely do believe it's a sin. I absolutely I don't care if you have a problem with me. It's not me. It's the Bible that says it. I'm not. I'm not condemning you. I'm not
Mhm.
saying anything. I'm not saying. I'm telling you what the Bible says about it. But I still love you. I still.
Yeah.
It's something I struggle with in my own life. I mean, I've been very open about my sexuality and about things that I struggle with. And like, so I'm not saying anything against people that have that particular issue. What I'm saying is that particular issue is something that's being used against you to keep you from God, because any church that affirms you is not a church you want to be at, because church, the church is not there to affirm you. It's to
Mhm.
affirm Jesus Christ. It
Right.
is to affirm the Holy Spirit. That is what the church is for. It is not to bolster yourself up. It is so that you have a relationship with Christ, so that you don't go to hell.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and I know this is kind of turn or burn, um, but this is just where my heart has been, because I see it. I see it so much lately with people, and it grieves my heart. It grieves my heart.
I recently, I don't know if I can call it recently anymore. I would say I have become a Christian in the last 4 years of my life. It's been a slow process. Been an Orthodox for about a year. Um, in my progression as a Christian, there's something sort of about the LGBT movement that I noticed that I didn't notice until recently, until I started to become um, more rooted in Scripture. And when you really start to understand what's written in the Scripture, especially what's enumerated as sins, you see in the LGBT movement, the word pride is emblazoned across everything to do with that. The pride parade, gay pride, pride this, pride that. Pride is one of the major, absolutely major sins. And it's like we enshrined it in big, bold letters and drew rainbows around it. It's something we now want to sell to children. I'm like, it's literally one of the seven deadly sins, right? Like
Mm,
pride. And we've written it in bright, beautiful, attractive colors. And is interesting to me how quietly that kind of thing happened until it was glaring, and you can't turn in any direction now and not see sin written on the wall. And that's hard to communicate to people in a culture who have been boiled slowly like a frog. And slowly, ever so slowly, the heat has been turned up. And we're all kind of sitting in this boiling water going, what? It's fine. It's not. The water's boiling.
Yeah.
And you're not crazy for wanting to jump out of it.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with you. I I think that especially in this day and age, it's not it's no longer that you can even say these things in regular conversation. It's like you are a horrible person for even suggesting that, hey, this is not okay. That not only should these churches be affirming, but if that any church that says otherwise should be condemned.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's like you it's almost good in a way. I mean, these are things that we were going to see, and you kind of talked about in Acts. We see what happens,
Mhm.
in Revelation. Yeah, it's like when I was a child and these things were explained, like this is the way the world's going to be one day. I used to think there's no way because it's so easy. There's a book right here. If people already know that it's going to happen, of of course they're not going to do that, because I was a child and I thought like a
Mhm.
child, and I'm still astounded as a woman. Um, oh my gosh, it's happening exactly the way
Yep.
the Bible said that it was going to happen. They, this this group is stomping on the face of anyone that opposes them and saying that it's
Yep.
loving. They literally took the symbol of God's promise to the earth and took it as their own. It's
Yep.
like they've commandeered like this symbol that was a promise that God would never flood the, it's almost like a whole like a wh- like wow, it's gonna be bad. And I like, and this is why I think my heart has changed,
Mhm.
regarding the last year or so, because I no longer care so much politically what happens. I really care what happens to people's heart. And I want to kind of cap off my point about these affirming churches, because if there was a church that affirmed your infidelity, if there was a
Mhm.
church that affirmed your adultery, if there was a church that affirmed uh, your drinking habits, if there was a church that affirmed your theft, if there was a church that affirmed your believing in things that, believing Jesus wasn't the son of God, like it
Right.
would be the same thing. It's the same thing. The danger in these home like the homosexuality in these type of affirming churches is not that the sin is so much worse, it's that the lie is so much easier to believe.
Yeah.
It's that when you're laying face down drunk in a pool of your own vomit, it's hard to say, well, God, God
This
is
is
fine
okay.
with this. Not only
Yeah.
is God okay, is God made me this way. God made me this
Right.
way. And he still loves me. Oh, okay, that's true. You know what? God does still love you. But like there's no like, but this is not what God wants for me. This
Mhm.
isn't like,
Mhm.
and the flip side of that are the churches that maybe they're not affirming churches, but they affirm in the worst kind of way. These are the churches that I call the feel good churches. The genie in the bottle. You just got to rub God the right way, and you're just got to say the prayer the right way. And you know
Right.
what? You're going to get everything. It's the manifest destiny. What do I always call it when we talk the Magna Carta churches?
You always say the Magna Carta, and I
The
was like, I
Magna
don't think
Carta
that's what
churches.
you mean.
That's not what I mean, but that's where the
Yeah.
Magna Carta was came from. It's these manifest, like if you can pray it into existence churches. And to me, I think they go hand in hand.
Right.
They're all the same lie that Satan tells. That is, you can make God whatever you want, and if we keep going with your ego, not only can you make God whatever you want, you can become your own God. You you are what needs to be affirmed, because God didn't make you in his image. God made you his carbon copy, and you are God. You can be a God. In fact,
Yeah.
not only are you a God, you're in control of God. So you just need to tell God what you want him to do, and he'll do it for you. God is your servant.
The
And
the only people I've heard openly espouse that idea all turned out to be cult leaders. And,
yeah,
like, I didn't hear it until after the fact, and they were already exposed as cult leaders, but there was a time before they were recognized as cults where they called themselves churches.
yeah.
And this is the case with the Jim Jones people, the, oh, what are they called? That hippie cult, Love Has Won,
Oh yeah.
the one where they mummified their leader. Like, if you guys want a interesting rabbit hole to go down, look up the Love Has Won cult. You will not be
Mormons.
disappointed. And that was all their contention, that not only is God okay with everything that you're doing, you're actually God. I'm God and you're God, and I was Jesus and you were Jesus and all of these things. And I've only ever heard that ideology being spread by cult leaders. So to hear it being popularized into the main culture is a terrifying
Yeah.
prospect. Honestly terrifying.
There's a video, and I can't remember, but it goes along with the Indigo Children. Um,
Okay.
and it's basically this whole idea, and it's a really cute little cartoon that basically goes into the idea that we all are one, and we're all basically one being, and we
Mhm.
all experience the earth. We all were Jesus. We all were Hitler. We all come back to one, and it's all experiences, and we all are God. And it's very popularized now. It's starting to get bigger and bigger, because it's easy. It's much easier to soothe your mind with the idea that nothing bad's going to happen, as long as you know, as long as you think like, "Oh, at the end of this, I'll just get reincarnated." It's all the same kind of crap. It's really the same basic lie that has been told since Adam and Eve, like, "Oh, you can have this same knowledge. You just have to do this one thing."
Right.
We're all basically the same. If you just say this one prayer, you never have to do anything again. You never have to, like, actually repent. You never have to actually believe in Jesus. You don't you can have heaven. You can have heaven without God there. You can
So, how much pressure does that put on a person, especially most of us who don't feel like we have our lives entirely figured out? And it puts the onus of your salvation on you. I am too confused about what to wear every day and what to eat every day to be in charge of my own salvation and my soul. Like, I need to give that to God. I can't do that by myself.
but see, they have that figured out too. You just take the shame out. We just remove shame
Ooh.
from the equation. And then if you don't get it right, it's okay, because we're all one. We all make mistakes. And not only are they just mistakes, no matter what you do, you're a good person, because mistakes are just learning. You know what? Like,
Yeah.
that's what it is. Mistake, you're just learning.
It
I
makes me wonder if the people who are committing, like the really rich people who are committing the most atrocities on this planet, that's what they're soothing themselves with. Because
yeah,
this is a idea that I really hear passed around by people who, even if they're not like positions of world leader power, they're in positions of power. They're
yeah,
over other people. And this is the kind of idea that they espouse at those people.
yeah.
And I think it's kind of to make up for their own lack of godliness, because they don't have those answers. And so when people following their methods fall flat on their faces and turn around and be like, well, why did that happen? You'd be like, oh, no big deal. You just,
You're
I
learning.
it's yeah, it's a twisted, it's a very twisted version of
Well, to me, it's a very twisted version of Christianese that say, God will
Yeah,
never give you
there you go.
something that you can't handle, which I said this on Twitter the other day, basically like, yes, he will. God gives us things we can't handle all the time. God will regularly schedule things. If God wants you in his kingdom, he will regularly schedule that you fall on your face so that
Yeah,
he is glorified.
yeah.
God will regularly schedule things that you can't handle until you get right with him a lot of times. God will do I mean, if you don't have to believe me. I don't have any witness that I could give. I mean, I could tell you all about my life, but you could literally just read Bible stories. You could read about any king in the Bible, and you could see, like, no, no, God gives you things you can't handle, and he does it specifically. I don't think he gives them to you. He allows Satan to give you those things, to allow
Yeah.
Satan to let those things happen in your life so that he can be glorified. So that he can,
That's
because that's a one thing we were, and Cam said this to me the other day, like, Jesus never promised us everything. The one thing Jesus promised us in this life was pain and suffering, that we
mhm,
could expect that.
yeah,
So this whole new set of church that basically is indistinguishable from the rest of the world, where it's like, get yours,
mhm,
just in a, but go to church on Sunday about it. Like, that's it's just another lie. It's just another lie. And I really would encourage people to not ignore what I say, but scrutinize every single thing I say and go read the Bible and prove me wrong.
mhm,
Please go read the Bible. I just encourage people, find a church, and and if you're already in a church, I'm not telling you to not trust your pastor. I'm not telling you to just disregard I'm telling you, verify,
mhm.
constantly verify. And if you're unsure, seek wise counsel. Literally, like, seek wise counsel. It is so imperative that you find these things out. And again, Cam, me, you, and I forget who else, there was a couple other people. We were talking about this the other day. And I had said, hey man, if you never had anything but a prayer in your heart and a willingness to love Jesus, I think you could die today and go to heaven. And the truth is, I do believe that. I do believe all you need is that, you know, that repentant heart and that longing for Jesus and wanting Jesus Christ in your life. But the longer you're on this earth, the
Yeah.
more you're going to need, because when you're a baby, all you need is milk. As you grow, when you're an adult, you need the meat. And I really encourage people in that, because I know what I'm saying right now sounds critical and hateful and mean, and it's not any of those things. It's because I love people so much that I am so scared to see this path of people that I love going down, because they're soothing themselves right into hell.
The thing about being critical and mean is that it's critical and mean not to tell somebody that they're about to walk into traffic. If I were going to get hit by a car and you had to scream at me so that I would turn around and not get hit by that car, I might not like getting screamed at, but I sure as hell don't like getting hit by a van. So, it's more cruel not to tell people the truth. And I think
Yeah.
that there has been this sort of like okay, so like we're talking about affirming churches, but we should also, in the same vein and the other side of the coin, talk about those like really ultra anti-gay churches, the ones who make that their entire platform. You'll even hear people who purport themselves to be pastors and men of God talking about they want violence. They want their parishioners to be violent to people who are homosexual. And I think that there is sort of like a seesaw effect. Some people call it a pendulum. When you push so far to one side, you have to expect that people are going to kind of swing the other way. So don't think that affirming churches necessarily occurred in a vacuum either.
No.
They were a response to some of this behavior that prevailed for a long time, this anti homosexual behavior. And so I think that it's important as Christians to also like recognize that there is a narrow path to walk in terms of loving people, because you have to love people and you have to meet them where they live. And so we don't like judge not lest ye be judged, but also, not let people walk into traffic and get hit by a bus.
Yeah.
And like there's a line here, and it's difficult to know where that is. Because I love many gay people, consider them family. They were people who stood next to me and my husband when we got married. And, I consider them family. So the idea that I should be mean to them once I've become a Christian is antithetical to my entire way of thinking. Like, I need to love them more, but sometimes that love involves being honest. A doctor has to tell a patient they have cancer. It's going to suck to hear. It's going to be awful. But if you have cancer, you have to know,
Yeah.
you know?
And
That
I
has to be done. I'm sorry, that just to cap that off real quick, that has to be done in a loving environment. When somebody you trust is talking to you, somebody, you speak to in love, not you're standing on the corner with a sign that says all are going to hell.
yeah.
That's the wrong way to love people.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm kinda talking about, is, like, none of this is occurring in a vacuum. We're all sort of, like, working against each other.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what you're saying. Um, I I always kind of, when that judge not verse comes out, the other side of that verse, or the end of that verse, basically says, depending on, which translation, like, you're judged with the same measuring stick that you judge others with. So
Right?
that verse does not tell you at all, hey, you don't judge people. Like, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. That's like if I went to the police and said, hey, I was raped, and then the police said, I'm sure you've done bad things in your life too.
Oh, right.
That's
Right,
it
yeah.
would be ludicrous. So what it's saying in this verse, because it talks about several times in the Bible, this is how you come at people. So you're not if you're telling people, like, uh we've seen the signs of, like, hate the f, what
Yeah,
f-a-d,
all
like
F words go to hell, all of
yeah,
that,
like, I
yeah.
don't even want to say, I don't like being mean to people. um that's the same measuring stick that you're choosing, that
Right.
you have no, you know that it's not that you don't have grace. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're telling them the truth. It doesn't matter, that because you're not telling them the truth in that. You're lying to them. You're being wicked, because that's just
Mhm.
not the truth. Because you can be a homosexual and you can still go to heaven. That could be something you struggle with from till the day you die. And it's sad, and it's a hard life. It's a hard road to hoe.
Mhm.
That's but it's like, there's a difference between, oh, I'm having this thing that I'm struggling with, and oh, I'm acting on it, and oh, I'm not repenting from it. Oh, I mean, that's where you need to read your Bible. And I would say any pastor, any preacher that is holding up one of those signs, they need to go back and read the Bible, and
Mhm.
read about how you talk to people and how you minister to people. Because at that point, what you're doing is basically condemnation. You're making a judgment call that you are not qualified to make, that you
Right.
can't make. So because you don't have the authority to make it, you're a liar. You're lying. And I'm telling so this is me judging them in a way that is, I'm trying to be as loving and straightforward as honest. Stop
Right.
lying to people, because liars won't inherit the kingdom of God either.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I mean, there's
It's
ways.
playing to people's prejudices, and people
Yeah.
have this ingrained prejudice toward things that are different from themselves, and so, like, homosexuality scares a lot of people. Like, truly, they don't know any gay people, and they're afraid, and there is, like, some genuine empathy to be had for people who are afraid, but people like that capitalize on it, turn it into hate. They pull this verse out of Leviticus and say, "You can hate the gays," and God's
Yeah.
into it.
It's not because they want to save anybody. It's not because they want to help anyone. It's because they want to breed hate, and the only person
Mhm.
they're lying to is themselves. It's not like
Right.
it's not like they're gonna get to heaven and God's gonna be like, you got me. I didn't know your heart. Like, I should have checked your heart, you know. Just, I mean, stop, man. Don't be that. Don't You don't need to be that person either.
Right.
Um, because again, that's a fun little way that, I mean, that's a good trick. Satan has one trick, and man, he's good at it. Just convincing you that what you're doing isn't a sin. Because it's real hard for Satan to convince people like, hey, this is a sin, you should do it anyways. Like that that's almost impossible at the beginning, you know? But if you can convince people that what they're doing is the right thing to do and it's an
Mhm.
okay thing to do, I mean, then there's no work to do because then they
Right.
don't even question it. In fact, some people, like some of these preachers, they get so steadfast that they're like, I'm doing the Lord's work. And it's like, okay.
And I can see how power is very affirming to people as well. So, like, the more their power grows, the more their popularity grows, the more their wealth grows, the more they can probably be convinced in their head that God is supporting them.
Well, this
Even
is,
though it says multiple times in the Bible how riches and power and wealth are, um, what is what is the exact phrasing? It will be easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than it will be for a rich man to inherit the kingdom. There are multiple warnings against sort of like the I've been using the word cancer a lot tonight. The sort of like corrosive nature
yeah,
that these things, that these earthly riches have for us,
they're
and
Magna
that
Carta.
yeah, the Magna Carta,
It
yeah,
it's this manifest destiny idea, this,
yeah,
that, uh, this idea that if I have a lot, it's because God has shown me grace. If I have a little, it's because I'm not doing all the right things. Like
right.
it's again, it's all these grace churches, these prosperity preachers. It
Hmm.
all kinda goes hand in hand. It all is like, as long as you're like, it's that they've boiled Christianity down to, as long as you're getting what you want in life, God must have favor. Like, God must be favoring you. God is giving you favor because if things were going poorly in your life, then God must be upset with how you're doing things. Like,
Right.
it's this idea that it's that simple, and it's literally just a lie because at the end
It's
of the day,
really the opposite.
well, the thing is it's a lot of times, yeah, but really, it's none of it.
We
It's
hear, "Blessed is the poor, blessed are the meek."
yeah,
You know, all of the people, like, that you sort of don't expect, to be the ones who are blessed by God because they're poor and they're hungry, they're actually, like, able to be closer in spirit, and that's who Jesus came to. The people he was born to were the poorest of people. The death that he suffered was the way that common criminals were killed. There's so much about that story that when you look at sort of like the grandeur of the church that came up after it, it's antithetical in a way because you see these riches and you see these trappings and
yeah.
this power structure which is full of corrupt politicians. Um, and it's really like the meek and the poor who are the examples that are given over and over of people who are doing the right thing. Um,
And I think at the end of the day, the reason for that a lot of the time isn't just because they're poor, they're going to heaven. I don't think that that's the
no,
correlation.
yeah, I
I think
definitely
it's
didn't want to.
because they have nothing. So it's like when you have a lot of things going well for you, it's so easy to disregard God.
Right.
When you have a lot in your life, then it's really, really easy for you to just go along and be soothed in your lot in life.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, unfortunately, it's, I guess, just the human condition that when we are struggling, we call on God. And again, it goes back to that, like, God won't give you anything you can't handle. Yes, He will. Our friend John today said, God won't give you anything He can't handle. And
Right.
I think that is so poignant. Like, there that he won't give you anything he can't handle. And I would say, like, I wouldn't measure God's favor with you um, on how much you have in life or how much you don't have in life. I
Right.
would just make sure, no matter what your lot in life is, that you get right with God. Like, I think at the end of the day, that's the only thing I can say. I'm reading these comments and I do realize that I said that's a long hoe to row or something like. I know I said it wrong.
A row to
Hoe to
hoe.
hoe. That's what I said. That's what I thought I said, but they're saying I didn't, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't. Like,
No, it's road.
ro-
A
I
long
know.
road. Right. Okay, okay.
I always thought it was row to hoe, like you're hoeing a
No.
row of corn or really. Well, you learn something
Okay,
new.
so I think it's road.
I thought it
I
was
could be
row to hoe.
wrong. I think that Jamie should look this up.
Yeah, can you look it up? Because I thought it was row to
Yeah,
hoe,
let's look it up.
like
Okay.
you're hoeing or like a row of seeds or something.
Okay, so there's a winery called Road to Hoe. Um
I think that was our tequila night out was our road.
The Road to Hoe.
Yeah, that was our road to hoe.
Oh
That was
my
my
god.
20s.
So we went to the bar and then
If they're saying I said road to hoe, I didn't say that because I've never said road to hoe. I know
yeah,
that.
no, it is road. Yeah.
Is
Oh
it
wait, hold
road?
on.
It's
Now
road
there's
to hoe.
this other website says it's row.
It's
ROW, hard row to hoe.
I don't understand why, because he's saying it's row to hoe. Elephant Man, I said row to hoe. Unless I said hoe to row, I didn't say road because I've
I
never.
always thought it was road.
It's not.
Okay, is it road to hoe?
I even if it is road to hoe, I'm not gonna say that because in my mind, row to hoe is. Why would you say road to hoe?
Okay, a
You would
long
say
road
road
to
to haul.
hoe,
It's a long road.
idiomatic, a difficult, arduous task or set of tasks, a lengthy and demanding project. Okay, so Wiktionary says row, ROW, a
Row.
long road to a
Like
long row to hoe.
yeah, like a
Okay,
row of crops.
yeah.
You're in Georgia. You should.
I don't know. I don't be knowing about
I never
crops.
said road, Donna. I know. I'm gonna get like this is the one sticking point I'm gonna have because I know I didn't say road. I wouldn't say road because
Okay.
I know what
Well,
the
I
term is.
I thought it was road. So I say road all the time, and I guess I'm
Road.
wrong. I'm out there sounding
I
stupid.
thought they were
So
making fun of me because I said hoe to row, and I was like, I might have said say road because I know it's
The-
not road. And if it is road at the end of the day, I'm not gonna say it. It sounds
I'll
stupid.
just strike that from my lexicon and no longer speak of it.
Because if I said
Wow.
road to hoe, that would be prostitution.
Well, I don't know. I kind of thought it might have something to do with like a hoe is like a flat shaped tool, right?
Yeah,
So like
that's
you
what
would to like make a road, you would have to like hoe
oh, see, I
the
was
grass
thinking
off of it.
like hoeing the crops, like
Like
a
a
row of
hoe.
crops. Yeah, like
Okay.
with the hoe, with the gardening tool.
Right. Okay. So we're both thinking of the same tool. We're not
Yeah,
just
we're
using it
not
in the same context. Okay. That's
I mean,
fine.
I could see saying road to haul, like a trucker.
Okay. But nobody says that. I've never heard anybody
I'm gonna
say that.
start saying that in every interview. That would be a long road to haul.
It
Saying it.
They're gonna be like, "What did you say?" And then just repeat it like they're dumb.
Like road to haul.
Right.
I'll be like, ask Jessica, she knows.
No. No, she doesn't. I'm wrong. Google just proved that I'm wrong, which is,
Um,
fine. I'm willing to look things up and but only as far as Google. So
oh,
it's
my
not like I
favorite
go to the Go ahead, go ahead.
no, no, is
I was gonna say
my
it's not like I'm willing to go to the library and look at the Encyclopedia Britannicas. So it's not like I'm all that devoted to looking things up.
okay, as one of the things I said at the beginning of all this is I started calling it World Timeout, and I forget whose show is on, but they made fun of me. They're like, "Did you just call it World Timeout?" And I said, "Yeah." And then other people started saying it after I started saying it in clubhouse rooms, and every time I go back to that, like, because I'm like, so many people made fun of me for calling it that, and now people say it all the time, and I'm like,
Every time I talk about something in the world going on because of COVID, my husband goes, because of the response to COVID. And while he's technically right, I'm sick of hearing it. Like,
yeah.
you know what I mean.
So, okay, we should change the subject.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I think at this point they can't really like get you for saying what they've already admitted. And they've admitted a lot of this stuff. Like even
Even
Dr. Leanna Wu herself is all like, so what, you're never gonna go to a restaurant again?
yeah,
Like and this is the lady who wanted to arrest all the people who didn't get vaccines.
yeah.
So if that woman is like, look, you just need to like give up the ghost. I
Well,
think we're done.
I mean, oh, we're not done. We're not done.
You
By
don't think so?
midterms, no, because by midterms, they're gonna be blaming Trump for, mandates, and Democrats are gonna be saying that they were never the ones that wanted mask mandates, they were never the ones for vaccine mandates. All of the mask mandates happened under Trump, and all of the
Heard
mandates got
Saki say
lifted under
that.
Biden. Huh?
I've heard Pisaki,
Oh,
Kawasaki,
Kawasaki? Yeah.
Jen,
Peppermint patty?
Jen Redhead. Yeah, he
Yeah.
does look like Peppermint Patty. There's some woman that calls her sir, and you know it.
Propagandist peppermint patty. I just saw the private chat. I was like, "Oh, we skipped that.
Oh,
We can go back."
I have too much ADD to pay attention to both chats. Okay. Oh, should I read this out loud?
Uh,
Oh, no, I should not read that out loud.
It's not my
Okay.
show, so
It's true, it's true. It's a question I'm gonna ask you, so you're gonna
from
answer
a listener.
it from a listener. A listener asks, "Can transgender women be better moms than real women?" Because, ooh, Lord, did I get so angry, and I should get angry, it's not
Call off
cool,
your
but
dogs, dude.
wait, what?
The call off your dogs, dude. That was in
Yes,
the bathroom
yes.
at the
So,
yeah.
okay, at the, Leah, Thomas is her last name?
Yeah.
Their last name? The swimmer, the individual who won the women's swim meet,
Yeah.
um, there were many people who were either transgender activists or gender critical activists who were at that swim competition, which seems a weird place for all that kind of stuff to gather, but there they gathered. And then
Mhm.
they argued with each other in the hallway afterward. And the
I
transgender
saw that.
activist, who is over 50 years old and has only recently decided that she is a woman,
He
was telling a biological woman that she was in fact a better mother than her. And she said, or not, that she was more of a mother than her.
yeah.
Which kind of, not being a mother myself, it would seem like I don't have a dog in that fight. But boy, does it feel like I do. And I got PO'd about it, girl. What's your take?
Well, I think that, if your default is mental illness, you're gonna be hard pressed to be a better mother than most mothers.
Here,
But I'm sure
here.
there's some psychopath out there that you can beat, so, die trying, I guess. I mean, that that case in particular,
Mhm,
I don't think so. I think that that little display right there, proved every point I've talked about for the last 2 years, if not longer, that in our current climate, if you are a transgender man, you largely go unnoticed by the population because
mhm,
men don't care. You're no threat to other men. If you are a transgender woman, you encroach on the spaces of women. And not only do I find it mostly false, offensive, scary, threatening to
mhm.
myself and other women. Um, I find it interesting that we as a society are just supposed to pretend that these dudes get to LARP as women, and then when it is convenient for them, become men again. When they
Yeah.
need to, use their brawn, use their muscle, that it's perfectly okay for them to be men again. When they need to say, call off your dogs in some misogynistic,
Mhm. Mhm.
disgusting manner to a mother, then it's perfectly okay for them to do that. And then switch right back into the role of woman, which is, I think, why this non-binary situation is becoming so prevalent, because if you can code switch, switch back and forth, if you
Right.
can do all these things, then it's perfectly okay to do that. Um, but in my mind, for the most part, it looks a whole lot like if you're a dude in America, you can still get anything you want, just like you could the day we landed
Right.
on that rock.
Right.
Like, so,
Right.
like, you can be anything as long as you're a dude in America, like, even a
Well,
woman.
one of the arguments that you hear out of the sort of they're called derogatorily trans exclusive radical feminists.
Mm,
Although I think that term will get thrown at a lot of people who probably aren't radical feminists at all and aren't even exclusionary to trans people, but simply don't go along with the sort of trans rights activist narrative. Um, so it's a sort of unfairly applied label. But for convenience, I'm going to kind of like refer back to it. So one of the arguments that the turf community has put out there is this is an erasure of women. Women are sort of being erased from our existence. The safety of our spaces is threatened, and they said, well, that's a ridiculous accusation. No one's trying to erase women. However, we kind of jokingly talked about it at the beginning of the show, but we had a Supreme Court nominee asked today if she could define what a woman was, and out of fear or political savvy, whatever her motivations were, she literally said that you can't even define what a woman is unless you're a biologist. You have to be a highly academically educated person to even define what a woman is, because that concept is just too nebulous for the everyday person.
our being a
And
5-year-old who could literally do it right now. If I pulled her in here and said, "What's a girl, what's a boy?" She would have no problem, because she literally will tell you, like, "I have a vagina." Like, and
right.
super proud of telling you that. Like, so her brother has a penis, because it's literally that simple, and everything else, I'm sorry, is either a mental illness or a fetish, or both.
And we're talking about a situation where like there's the obvious places where women are being pushed out of their spaces, for example, out of swim and sports championships. So that's a very public face of what's going on. But you also have this problem where now people can self-identify themselves as transgender. So there are people who are, I don't know if you've ever heard the term before, gynophilic. Gynophilia is a type of sexual kink or sexuality where a man is turned on by presenting themselves as a woman. So they're not actually experiencing gender dysmorphia or body dysmorphia disorder. They're instead have a sexual perversion where they are aroused by presenting themselves as women, which is a much different thing than actually having a disorder which causes you physical and mental pain. So I have empathy for people who have mental disorders. Like that's not even something that I think like you should be hurt for. I think you deserve care. I think you deserve therapy. Like you deserve to be cared for and loved in all of the ways possible. But there are people who are taking advantage of this fact that we're no longer even willing to call a disorder a disorder. And so they can bring their fully intact male genitalia into female spaces and expose women and young girls to their body parts.
Yeah.
And the women and young girls who say, we don't want a dick in our locker room are being told that they're bigots.
Yeah.
And so while this doesn't have an effect of being written into any kind of law or codified into law that women are being pushed out of their spaces, if I were the mother of a young child, I would no longer bring her into locker rooms, bathrooms, and other spaces where I know it's possible for gynophilic men to bring their intact male genitalia and expose them to children without any kind of retribution. And in fact, that retribution might fall upon me or the business.
Yeah.
And this has a physical effect of pushing women out of public spaces. So it is in every physical respect the erasure of women. We can't even identify with our lips out in public what is a woman any longer. So who's to say that men who identify as men cannot simply walk themselves into our spaces? So you're right. Men can now do literally anything they want, including walk into women's rooms.
And it's everything you said is right on. The only thing that I would even add to it is the insult to injury. Like, if you're new in a space, um, if you're new, if people are still coming to terms, you don't push your way into these spaces. You weren't invited by us. And eventually, the thing is that most women, either by societal pressure, which I think is what's a lot of what's happening now, are because we have friends that are transgender, we would invite you into these female spaces. A lot of us. And if we didn't, oh well, but it's that you weren't invited into these spaces. You just pushed your way in. And you pushed your way in on basically on a loophole. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I see in the comments, Quest had said here, like, women have been violating male spaces for decades now. Once the tables are turned, the feminists are suffering palpable cognitive dissonance. Not at this. Women have been fighting for their own space because for decades we only had no space, or we had to interfere in male spaces. There was nowhere else for us to go. So we're trying to create our own spaces. Like,
And
and
also having to let women, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but having to let women golf at your golf club or play cards at your lodge is hardly different than not being able to bring my daughter into a female only locker room without the threat of a penis being lodged in her
yeah,
face. That is an entirely different
yeah.
situation.
And I mean, sorry. uh yeah, no, there's a difference. I understand though what Quest is saying, because that I get that that's happened. Um, I don't think it was as prevalent, and I think women were really looking for a place of our own, and we've enjoyed it for a certain number of years, and not that many. Even in my lifetime, it was you know WNBA, all of these things that are now women spaces are coming up, and now they're being taken away from us, because and we have no say in it. It's like I'm looking for a because, and it's like, what is a because? Because most of us are too weak to just to emotionally, stand up against our
Mhm.
peers and say, no, no, I don't want this. Um, I have two people. I have two people that I'm friends with, that are a lot of people in this audience probably know. I don't even know if they might be watching this tonight, or they might watch it in the future.
Mhm.
Um, and
Hopefully, watch
I
our show.
I can understand them being upset by some of the things that I'm saying, but I would imagine that they would have to also understand, like, um, how you view yourself mentally. I want you to be in a good headspace, but I can't do that at the expense of my daughter, and I
Mhm.
won't. I
Right.
just I just won't. Um, and it's not just that you being in a locker room is, um, basically, if this was 15 years ago, would be tantamount to child molestation. if I let my daughter in a locker room with a bunch of male genitalia being exposed,
You'd
um,
probably be marched out in handcuffs.
yeah. And now, if I don't expose her to that, she could be taken from me because I'm this bigot, horrible person.
Mhm,
Because we're just at the whims of, whatever society deems as good.
mhm,
Um, which again is why we need Jesus, because there's no limiting principle anymore. Ben Shapiro likes to say the left has no limiting principle. Humans that don't recognize their creator have no limiting principle. Like,
mhm,
that's
mhm,
just at the end of the day. But I will not do that to my daughter. And more importantly, I won't expose my son to that, to let him think, "Oh, this is an option. I'm feeling confused about a lot of things that are happening in my life. Maybe this is the option."
mhm.
Because I don't believe that you can, I don't really think you can like make someone gay or things like that. I think you can confuse people. I really think you can
Mhm.
confuse young people about it. And I definitely think you can confuse young people about transgenderism and all those things and make them think that if they are lacking something in life, maybe that's it. Maybe
I
these feelings are feelings that the opposite sex has, and that's what I'm going through.
We don't talk about the comorbid conditions that come along with transgender, that a lot of times, and we talked about this with our previous guest, Kat Cattinson. She's actually a detransitioning. She was female. She attempted to become male. The medications nearly destroyed her vocal cords. She's a singer, and it basically would have destroyed the purpose that God put her on earth for. And so she decided to detransition. You were talking earlier about how trans men are barely recognized in this entire movement. That's true up until the moment they attempt to detransition. And then suddenly they become very, very interesting. And it's like becoming the apostate of a religion. You know how like if you leave Islam, there's sort of like a fatwa on you. Like in some cultures, it would be okay to kill you because you've left the religion. I don't know that there are people who are part of that movement who don't feel that way about people who detransition. So sort of the I had a thing I was going into before that, but it it's difficult to talk about this topic. Fatwa the musical. It's a Larry David reference. I definitely recommend Curb Your Enthusiasm. This topic is difficult to talk about in public spaces too, because there is a certain kind of authority and culture that is possessed by YouTube, Twitter,
Yeah.
all of the social media giants who once they've decided that this is the line of thinking that they're going with, anybody who says anything outside of that line of thinking is actually like we call it cancellation, but like they will deperson you. You
Yeah.
won't be able to operate in any kind of public space as far as this is now the public town square. This is where ideas are exchanged and you will be pushed out of it. So it's not even like you and I know as we're having this conversation, we have to walk on eggshells while we're talking.
Yeah.
And although I think that you've been very choice with your words. Like I don't but I'm not worried about like putting the channel in danger or anything like that. What I worry about is the veracity with which these ideas how long before you can go to jail for them? Because it's already the case that if you have a child who is experiencing gender confusion in states like California, you cannot take them to a therapist who will not affirm their desire to transition their gender. They will be given hormones, sometimes without even a physical examination. Oh, and this is the point I wanted to make, the comorbidities that often arise next to body dysmorphia and gender dysmorphia, depression, eating disorders, bipolar, um, anxiety, all of these conditions run parallel in almost all of these cases and are barely addressed. What is addressed is the cultural preference that you be allowed to transition your gender without so much as a conversation?
Yeah. Really, in California, so California has had this law since 2012, and it was an Obama administration. It happened under the Obama administration. It was before I had my children. I remember thinking, this is horrifying, uh,
Mhm.
because it effectively puts the state in charge, but initially it puts the child in charge. And it's not natural by any means. And people make jokes and say, well, my kid wanted to be a dog last week. That doesn't mean, that they should. And then people, say, like, oh, that's different. And we all laugh it off. And it's supposed to be this gotcha moment. But at the end of the day, like, that's extremely poignant and true that
Right.
kids say these things. A child that feels a little boy that says, I want to dress up as a girl, a mother and a doctor and rational thinking adults that are around them may choose to say, okay, you can dress up as a girl, or they can choose to say, no, boys don't dress this way, or they can say kids can dress however they want. uh those are very different than saying you want to dress up like a girl. If you feel you're a girl, that's okay. Like that, because that's what the line is. It's not that you can't say anything, it's that you have to affirm this thought process that that's what they are now.
Right.
When children sometimes are just exploring different roles. If my son if my son went in and put a fireman suit on, do you think that I should just like send him over to, Duluth
Yeah.
PD or Duluth Fire Department and be like, okay, you guys, he said he's a fireman, so put him on the truck? I mean, you're
Self-affirming.
a bunch of bigots if you won't put my 8-year-old on the truck right now. Like, he
Right.
says he's a chief, so I mean,
Right.
it makes no sense whatsoever, and it's literally a
Well,
law.
the contention is that if you don't gender affirm a trans person, they will commit suicide. This is the line. They will commit suicide. So we're not in that process. Yes, suicide rates are higher amongst transgender people. That is absolutely the fact. But it's malpractice and on the part of like the culture, the medical science to say that this is only caused by society not affirming their gender choices. Because there are people who fully transition, who are completely passing, who still kill themselves because they're also experiencing depression. They're also experiencing eating disorder. They're also experiencing anxiety. They're also experiencing bipolar and a myriad of other comorbidity mental health conditions. Whereas you've zeroed in on the one thing that you're no longer, not you, the royal we, being able to call a mental illness any longer. Like, so if it's not a mental illness, then why is treatment necessary? Like, you don't treat healthy people. So
Yeah,
like why are we denying the evidence of our eyes? Why are we denying our own logic?
yeah,
It's madness to me, and I think that we're doing people a really bad disservice. I don't want people bullied. That's not my goal here. I want them to be genuinely helped. And I don't think that we're genuinely going to help anyone by just out of the box affirming anybody who says that they're having some confusion about their actual gender. I don't think it does them any favors to let them start cutting off body parts and to permanently alter their bodies with hormones. And yeah.
I mean, there's so many we can go into this. I mean, it's getting late, but
Yeah.
I think again, for me, people are gonna disagree on this. At the end of the day, though, for me, it's just another thing that's like, it's just another way to focus on self, to make yourself the God. To how do I make myself more of myself? How do I continue to like how do I make me better?
Yeah.
How do I become more fulfilled? And it's like you can't do that no matter what. There's nothing in you that, like, there's nothing in you that is gonna fill that void where Jesus needs to be. Like, there isn't. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Like, I don't have I must be so boring on interviews now because this is all I can say to people
I
anymore.
don't think that that's boring. I
It's
think that it's things that people need to hear, and it might land on some people, and make them recoil, but if you hear these words and you recoil, I mean, that's kind of an indication of it in itself, in my opinion. Um, I do want to know, though, because what we're talking about is sort of a very dark side of the world that's going on right now. But there is sort of a thing, and like you mentioned, we are getting kind of late. So I kind of want to move toward this thing, which is sort of like the idea of the show and something that we ask every single guest that we have on, which is in all of this, what actually gives you hope? Like, what in this makes you say, okay, but all of this is worth continuing? What part of that, because you have young children
yeah.
and they're going to live in the world after we're gone from it. And there wouldn't be any point in that if there wasn't hope. So, what is the thing in all of this craziness that you do see as a light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, it's pretty simple for me. All of this is already in the Bible. So I already know how the story ends. For me, I answer this question pretty much the same way every time I've been on the show is like all my hope is in Jesus Christ. Like that's really there's nothing else for me because whether things are good or whether things are bad, it's all Jesus Christ is really the end all be all for me. And that's what gets me through day to day when life is like
Mhm.
really hard where I'm at the where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I can't take this life anymore. And I'm not talking about the outside world. I'm talking about my two little kids that have type 1 diabetes and, just being, in the situations that we've been in and, life happening. Um, it's like, I don't, I don't need to worry about the strength that I'm going to have to get through this whole ordeal. I just need to have I just need Jesus to pick me up and get me through the strength for right now
Amen.
because I'm not supposed to have manna for the next 7 days. Maybe right now I'm just supposed to have it for today because that's where God needs me to be right now. And it's a it's a hard road to haul sometimes. But, I mean, uh and I'm real bad at it a lot of times. I mean, you've seen with you, I've sat on the phone and just cried my eyes out with you because I'm like, I don't know what to do
Yeah.
next.
Yeah.
I'm torn between what this group of people is saying I should do and what I feel peace in my heart with what I've prayed about. And I think that's what gives me hope. I feel like I prayed about what am I going to do and I got here. I prayed about having different people in my life and I met you and have probably the best friend I've ever had in my life.
Oh,
I mean,
I love
you
you too, girl.
yeah, you know, um, it's, outside of like my husband, it's like that I those things didn't happen just because like I'm a great person. You know me, I'm not. Like they happened because I prayed about it and God was like, "Oh, here, I'm going to put you in this position." And that to me is what gives me the most hope is that I'm able to be like, "All right, I'm sad about this. I get angry with God. Um, but I notice my anger with God is turning more from why is this happening to, hey man, why can't our timing be aligned? Like change
Mhm,
my heart
mhm.
so that I'm more patient. And then I'm like, I don't want to pray for, like, because I know that if you pray for patience, God will just make you have to be patient. That's how you get it.
Right. How do you get to
Like,
Carnegie Hall? You
yeah, absolutely.
practice.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's really it. It's
Yeah.
not there's no big secret. That my
Yeah.
hope is in Jesus. That's all. That's it.
It's an amazing answer. A lot of our guests actually give very similar answers, and every time I hear it, that's my white pill. That's the thing that's giving me hope, is that over and over and over, guest after guest after guest. I don't know, Cam and I have been doing this for a little over a year now. And I would say more often than not, a guest that we have says that their hope is in Christ. And I feel, and I don't know if this is just my perception because I came from atheism to Christianity, but I feel like there are lots of people turning back to God right now. And, if it's happening to me, I'm not the only one. I'm not that smart. So I know that there are smarter people out there realizing this too. So I do have one more question for you, since someone added it to the roster right at the end of the thing.
All right.
What is your favorite thing about Cam?
Well, there's a lot of things, but
He
um,
can't say his beard anymore because he doesn't have one now.
I know I
So,
was gonna
yeah.
say something about it, and I was like, I my Rory started crying, and I was like, I noticed that. I'm able to talk to Cam, like I would. I'm I'm I shouldn't be surprised, but I'm consistently surprised that Cam doesn't like Cam doesn't react like a lay person. Like even though he easily could when you ask him things. It's not that he's even keeled, it's that he has a pastoral answer for things. And if he doesn't, then he'll look for it. He doesn't just give you some BS. Um, and that he meets people kind of where they're at. You know,
Oh,
a lot of times I've came to Cam with things that I've said like, I know this is probably superficial, like in my mind, but it's like he finds a way to recognize, like, hey man, this is bothering them. You know, this is bothering her. I'm not gonna like brush her off and just be like, well, you're wrong, or like, oh, like he doesn't make excuses for people's, like if somebody has a problem with someone or something, he doesn't make excuses for that other thing and kind of brush people off or do that Christianese where it's like, oh, just pray about it, or like, maybe it's a you thing, or we shouldn't. It's like he kind of validates you, but also lets you know, like, hey, this is what the Bible kind of says about this. Uh,
right.
and I really appreciate that. I also like that he's a down to earth person. Like he's not, you know, Cam is my friend. I think. I hope he considers me a friend. I consider him a friend. Um, and I feel like when like he's honest, like there's people that are, especially in like social media and stuff, that are big names, and Cam's like he doesn't bow to that. He doesn't like kind of like kowtow to like whatever. Somebody tell me if I'm saying that one right.
No, I think you're
Like
good.
to people, he doesn't like he's not like this worshiper of men. If
Mm,
he doesn't like someone, or even if he does like someone, he doesn't like what they're saying, he usually seems to find a tactful way to tell them, like, I disagree, like, you're wrong in this situation. But he doesn't care about the consequences of what these people say or not. So I know when I'm asking Cam something, he's giving me an honest answer.
mhm, mhm.
And that's really hard for a lot of people, because I've noticed, I don't know how to say this without sounding like a jerk. Like a lot of people don't know who I am. Most people don't know who I am on social media, but the small group of people that do kind of know who I am, sometimes I can tell they agree with me when I haven't really made a great argument. Like even if I could, I
Ah,
like
I
I'm
see what
like,
you're saying.
I don't want that. It's
There's a
like
word for those people, but it's not very nice, so we won't say it, but
it's
I know
yeah,
what you
I mean, and I like that I know like he's not gonna he's not gonna do that. I've never had him embarrass me and be like, "Hey, you're stupid and wrong." But
mean.
like, I think if I came to Cam with a question, I mean, something that I talked to, we were not arguing, but we were talking about something the other day, and we had different interpretations of a Bible verse. And he went back and forth with me on it, and we found the verse and we kind of worked through it. And I was like, this is how you figure this stuff out with somebody that's not going to get offended because you have a different view,
Right.
and they're going to work through it with you because they're your friend. They're not just like, you're stupid and I'm dumb or like whatever.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I like about Cam.
I think that's awesome. And I agree with literally every last word you said. I approached Cam about some really heavy Christian topics early on in my journey through Christianity and did not realize the massive responsibility it puts on a person when not young in age, I'm not young in age, but when young Christians come to you seeking answers, you have such a important responsibility to what you answer to those questions.
Yeah.
And he takes that responsibility seriously. So I couldn't agree more with your assessment. So, Britt, you were wonderful. If you want to, please hang out for a minute for a little after show chat. I'm going to pull you off so I can do the whole little spiel, and then we're going to wrap this business up. So,
All right.
thank you, girl.
Thanks for having me on. Find me on Twitter, Tweets by Britt.
Right. Do you have any other projects going on, or we're keeping that cat in the bag for right now?
I have a show coming up with Sean Hickman, and it's in the works. So
okay. All right. Cat's still in the bag. All right. Okay. So let me pull you off. I know where the button is for this. Oh, Cam did it for me. Never mind. Okay. So, guys, what we have coming up for coming episodes, next episode, we're going to be talking to our beloved Brad Binkley, and we're going to kind of be doing a monthly catch up at all the current events, which is going to be exciting because there's been a lot of weird stuff going on this month. So I'm really excited to talk to Brad. I'm really excited to see him and Cam wearing their matching tank tops because it's so cute. After that, we have Cody Cook. We're going to be talking about the gospel from Genesis to Gethsemane. Gethsemane? I'm not saying that right, but it's the garden that Jesus has his agony in. So I know what it is. I just can't pronounce it. After that, Glenn Peoples, we're going to be talking about the resurrection during Easter time, or as our Orthodox call it, Pascha. And after that, we're going to be talking to Ben Brown about Mormon polygamy, which I'm really interested in because I watched Big Love. Like, I watched all the episodes of Big Love and all the episodes of Sister Wives because abnormal psychology is really fascinating. So I'm interested to talk to Ben Brown about this topic. Other than that, please join our Patreon, patreon.com/the Mad Ones. If you can hit that like or subscribe button, if you're watching us on YouTube, that would be great. If you can share our videos on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you can do that, just kind of help us get up there. That would be awesome. Help us spread the good word and the good message and the evangelion. Twitter, my Twitter is Soup Canarchist. Cam's Twitter is Ham Carless. Which reminds me of a little pig waiting at the bus because he doesn't have a car. We are youtube.com/the Mad Ones. You can find us on Rockfin, Odyssey, or anywhere that podcasts are sold. Come find us, tell your friends about us. And oh no, what's that thing that Cam always says at the end of the show? Oh, you have a chance to be a light in the world, so go be it.